Amazing, beautiful people, and welcome back to another AniNews reaction, solo leveling, cut content, reaction, video, something. Anyway, welcome back, how you doing? I've seen a lot of you commenting saying you want me to react to more AniNews videos, but you guys just say react to more AniNews videos. Give me specific ones. When you're recommending a video, give me the exact video you want me to watch, alright? Be like, Luke, watch this video from this channel, this video, done. And then I can read the comments and go, if you're too vague, then I don't really know what I'm doing, so be more specific, okay? You guys control this channel, so let me know. But for now, we are checking out episodes 9's cut content, which I'm actually curious about because this episode I felt like could have a lot of cut content, but at the same time I felt like the whole episode was mainly focused around that scene with Jinwoo. However, there was some cool stuff at the end, which I'm excited to see a little bit about, so let's check those out. Press that freaking like button, press that freaking subscribe button. Without more talking from me, let's jump into my first time ever reaction to AniNews, which, by the way, shout out AniNews, link to channels in the description. AniNews is Solo Leveling Season 2, Episode 9's cut content.
This was the best scene in Solo Leveling so far. It's not like I enjoy seeing a strong man cry, but not only was the animation absolutely phenomenal, but everything from the tone, atmosphere, and voice acting all served to bring Sung's personal climax to life.
Fucking yes, 100% agree, massively agree. I've actually seen people online saying like, oh, because he cried, he's no longer that cool anymore. I don't think any of you would agree with that, simply because you subscribe to my channel and I cry all the time, so... And I'm sure all of you think I'm the coolest, so just saying.
Atmosphere and voice acting all served to bring Sung's personal climax to life.
This was amazing.
I mean, as soon as the music hit, I knew they were going to treat this scene right. With what was essentially Sung's training arc now done and finished though, the anime can finally get to the major conflict they've been teasing since Season 1. It may have come at the cost of various side characters and a little world building, but at least we know the Jeju Island arc will be animated to completion now. This does, however, bring in a whole lot of side characters on its own, so if the anime continues to focus solely on Sung and the few other characters closest to him, then I suspect all these new ones will get the Jinhee treatment. Ignored completely.
I will say that the one thing I feel like is missing from Solo Leveling is more characters. I do, like, don't get me wrong, the anime is called Solo Leveling, and Jinwoo is an incredible main character, but it is definitely the one thing missing. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree. I'm quite happy if the anime continues the way it does and we're just all around Jinwoo, but it would be cool to see a couple of other characters, you know?
To him, then I suspect all these new ones will get the Jinhee treatment. Ignored completely or barely mentioned. The anime already skipped out on a whole fight between the translator and him, so it's that along with some other cutscenes that I'm gonna talk about here. Okay. I'll probably wait one more episode just in case that fight somehow comes up, but here's everything else the anime left out from the manhwa and web novel.
Okay.
Now, episode 21. It was all worth it. Covering chapters 88 to 91 from the manhwa and chapters 108 to 110 from the web novel. With Baron dead and his shadows picking up the loot, Sung would be sitting at level 97 now.
That means nothing to me, by the way. I have no idea.
So this
when he first entered, he was level 61. Fucking hell. Yeah, like, the levels mean nothing to me because they're only relevant to him. Like, so whenever they say the levels, if I'm the only person in the world who has levels, it doesn't mean shit. You know what I mean?
Sitting at level 97 now.
But damn.
When he first entered, he was level 61, so this was by far his most valuable dungeon experience yet.
Wait, did they mean from level 1 to level 100? He went from level 61 or whatever to level 97. Is that what they're saying? Or does he mean when he recently entered, like re-entered?
Combine that with the bonus stats from item sets and quest rewards, and the buff to Sung's power is probably the biggest leap we've gotten so far.
Okay.
I mean, the completed demon set gave plus 10 to all his stats, on top of the plus 20 to perception and intelligence the ring itself gave.
Yeah, the plus 20 for
add
intelligence
in the plus 30
crazy.
From finishing the demon soul quest, and the total boost comes to plus 120.
Jesus Christ!
It was the equivalent of going up 24 entire levels. If we take a closer look at what each of the items do, the Demon King's daggers gave plus 220 attack when equipped, along with a set effect that would grant bonus damage equivalent to Sung's strength stats.
Fuck me!
So, as long as Sung was using both the Demon King's daggers together, his attack power would effectively be doubled. The longsword granted plus 350 attack on its own, along with a passive effect called Storm of White Flames. It was an AoE attack that activated every time the sword was swung, creating a violent thunderstorm that would destroy everything in front of it.
Ah, that's so
now,
cool!
When it came to creating the elixir, The system didn't tell him success was dependent on his intelligence until after the process was started. So, if you were wondering why Sung didn't just dump all his bonus stats into intelligence right there and then, it's simply because he didn't know. It was a notion that went to frustrate him more than you might think, so Sung could only consider himself lucky for having woken up to the importance of it. It's when the elixirs were finished that not all the ingredients were used up. Barely any of the world tree was shaved off, and quite a bit of blood still remained from the Demon King. The only reason Sung couldn't create more elixirs then was because the spirit water from earlier ran out first. That being the case, should there ever come a time when Sung needed to create the elixir again, all he needed to do was get more spring water. It seemed the crafting system worked in a realistic manner like that. It only took accurate proportions based on what was needed. It's then that...
That's kind of interesting. The anime obviously didn't mention that, so I wonder if that's not going to be something that the anime has at all, which it doesn't really matter. He has 6 Elixir of Lives. I have a feeling that the Elixir of Life isn't just for the sleepy illness that people have. My guess is it's also going to be used for, like, bringing people back from the dead and that kind of shit. That's my prediction. That's what I reckon is going to happen. I might be wrong. Maybe it is just for the sleepy, which if it is, then that kind of leans into, obviously, a certain dad who is in Sleepy Town. But I also had this image of, like, later down the anime or something that you would have, like, people injured and he has to decide who he's going to save, which doesn't really sound like him because he doesn't really give a fuck about anybody. So, but you know what I mean. It could
would bring
work.
Kaisel over, finally receiving praise for doing good work for once.
Yay!
Kaisel's shadow would then come out at the night rank, making it the same level as Igris when he was first summoned.
Oh.
It was a rank that went to surprise Sung at first, but when he considered this was the mount of the literal Demon King, it made sense that he wouldn't ride something weak.
So this was the rank when Igris was summoned, so it's not an S rank Wyvern, it's like an high A rank.
Last reward was the title of Demon Slayer, but whatever it provided
Demon
remained
Slayer!
unknown since Sung hadn't yet met the requirements to activate it.
Oh.
Now, when it came to the new skill Shadow Exchange, what Sung initially thought was a silly limitation with the cooldown, he later realized was more like a balance feature. When he saw how it worked and the way it teleported him practically instantly, he knew a power like that without a cooldown was way too OP.
Yeah.
Luckily, the cooldown wouldn't remain at 3 hours forever, since as the skill's level went up, that timer would go down. It was before Sung would test it though that in the manhwa he would barely say anything to Essel, then in the novel he wouldn't say anything at all. If you thought
It would have been really funny if he didn't say anything at all. He just like... It just vanishes and she's like, eh? She's like talking about this party. We're gonna go to a party. We have a great time. And who the fuck is this guy? Where did Sung Jin-woo go? And the knight's just standing like, That would have been really funny.
Goodbye was abrupt. Well, the manhwa's was even more brief, and the novel didn't even have one at all.
That's hilarious.
As soon as the fight was finished, Essel was never acknowledged after that.
Aw, man.
It was a truly heartbreaking way to treat who we all know is best girl.
Aw.
The process of teleporting first involved zeroing in on the shadow he wanted to exchange with. Then
I honestly don't reckon we ever see her again. I reckon that is literally it, which is a shame because I liked her.
Process of teleporting first involved zeroing in on the shadow he wanted to exchange with, then had him confirm that this was his target, after which a strong gravitational-like force would pull him into his own shadow. It was right as he was about to disappear in the novel, though, that a system message would indicate the dungeon was going to return back to its original appearance.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what specifically that meant, but I imagine it's a process similar to what happened in the subway dungeon. Sung would be separated from the overlapping world the system had made for him. This then brings into question what happens to the demons, but that's something I don't think we'll ever find out. They either stay, are returned back to their dimension, or are erased from existence.
Yeah.
In any case, post-teleportation revealed just how amazing this skill was, since
we did talk about this. Also, the teleportation thing could be insane. Imagine if it didn't have a cooldown and he's like fighting with all the shadows around him. He could just use this to fucking teleport around an opponent. It is a crazy ability. I mean, at his speed, he can kind of do that anyway. The dungeon, like what happens to the dungeon? I am super intrigued about, you know, because what does happen? Like, are they sent back? Are they all just dead? Or are they just like reset and now they all like lose all their memories of Sung Jin-woo? Like what happened? I do really want to know. It's annoying.
With no adverse side effects and no time gap between transmissions, Sung could confidently say Shadow Exchange had near limitless applications. He couldn't consider its full potential for too long though, as what was important now was getting to his mother. Despite it being 10 PM and well past visitation hours, Sung would go anyway since at this point nothing was gonna stop him.
True.
This brings
what the
us
fuck
to
are
the
they gonna
meeting with
do?
the chairman, where him and Mr. Wu would be confirming the records Japan sent over. Based on their observations from a satellite capable of detecting mana, not only did it confirm the ants were in fact evolving, but it also confirmed every single ant did leave the tunnels during each of Korea's raids before. Sure, there were a few guardian ants left over, but compared to the entire army they usually dealt with, this was quite the confidence booster. The thing is, that special signal Wu mentioned would disrupt their hive mind, well, that was nothing more than an invention Japan had essentially said to just trust them on. There was no confirmation on Korea's end that this signal did in fact work, so everything regarding its effectiveness was all hearsay from the Japanese side. Whether it was actually true or not was a different story, but for now...
It does make you wonder though, if Japan do lie about this, and they do try and let's say there's a hypothetical scenario where this is Japan's plan to take out the strongest hunters in Korea, right? And that's why they're doing this. And then Japan becomes very weak, and they, we saw it in the last cut content, we've seen in the episodes, it seems like there's a nefarious plot at play here. So, if that is the case, one, is that gonna work? Or two, is that not gonna work? And if it does work, what does that mean for Korea? And if it doesn't work, what does that mean for the future of the world, you know? Because you would imagine that Korea would be pretty pissed off, and could we see a war between nations? Which isn't something that Solo Leveling is kind of hinted at all, but would make sense.
No, all Korea needed to focus on was killing the queen. It was definitely a simple objective when it came down to it, but with success relying heavily on the plans of everyone else, Chairman Go couldn't help but feel incredibly anxious about it. It was then that Mr. Go would sense a powerful magical presence, dictating the exact moment Sung had summoned Kaisel. Mr. Wu couldn't feel it himself, but the chairman had picked up on an incredibly brief burst of magical energy. And while he was curious to know where it was coming from, the only thing he could think about right now was the raid. Beck and Min would be shown to sense it too, making them think it was probably Choi and Cha duking it out. This brings us to their conversation, where a little more context was given for each of their motivations. First, what makes Min so unique isn't the fact he retired without injuries, it's the fact he retired despite being perfectly healthy. As the only S rank in the entire world to do so, Min had effectively given up on a type of life that no person had ever said no to before. I mean, it took a special type of person to turn down billions just because they didn't like being a hunter anymore. It's not like Min grew up rich either, so this was...
I have to say, I don't think it takes a special kind of person. I think it takes a realistic kind of person. I think there's quite a significant number of people who wouldn't want to, like imagine if someone told you, let's flash back to World War II or World War I. Imagine if someone told you, I'm going to give you £1 billion, all right, $1 billion, but you have to go fight in World War II for a year. Fuck that noise, man. You know what I mean? No, I'm not doing it. But this is different because this is even worse and even more terrifying. Bro has literally gone to Jeju Island. Look at the shit he's seen. I don't think that's shocking in any way.
It's truly just a personal preference for him. It's this that triggered a slightly different reaction from the anime, since with Min initially believing Beck was trying to recruit him, he had actually become quite defensive when making his intentions clear. This wasn't what Beck had come for at all though, since what he really wanted to do was say goodbye. You see, there was no telling what was going to happen on the island, so this could very well be the last time these two see each other. Now, though Min made it seem like Beck had a choice in the raid, when it came down to it, he really didn't. A guild could not decline a summons from the association. It was in return for the association accommodating every need the guild could ever have that the...
Oh, a guild. I had wondered about this, because I've been thinking about who's going to Jeju Island. And now there's a little thing I didn't even think about. Because I assume that when the Hunters Association summons people, they have no choice. But that does sound inhumane, right? But it's not that. It's when the Hunters Association summons guilds, they have no choice. Interesting.
The guild would then have to answer the association's call whenever. Should they choose not to, then emigration was likely the only choice after that. The problem is, it's likely no nation would ever want to recruit those hunters. Reason being that if a hunter ran away from a difficult raid once before, who's to say they wouldn't just do it again? There would always be this lingering sense of a lack of commitment that a country just couldn't put their faith in. So, this was the cost of being a deserter, but it's not like Beck was planning to desert anyway. As for why Min isn't treated the same, well, the retirement of a hunter was completely different. His was a personal choice no one could fault him for. It's not like he was reaping the benefits of being a hunter anyway, so the responsibilities that came with it no longer applied to him. It's for this reason that he becomes so defensive when first sitting down to talk with Beck. He thought Beck was trying to recruit him despite Beck knowing there was no way he'd say yes. This was a stance best noted by the tremors in Min's hands, since despite being offered significant money from places like Yujin Construction, Min couldn't place himself into a hunter position anymore. He simply wasn't fit for a job where it was kill or be killed. So, whatever it was he went through before, clearly traumatized him to the point he couldn't deal with it now. All he wanted was a normal life in this all-too-abnormal world. Beck, on the other hand, carried expressions of eagerness, since the look in his eyes made it clear he was ready to kill as many ants as possible. In the novel, this is what led Min to the conclusion perhaps those who awakened were those who wanted to fight. Switching over to the hospital now, the whole
Those who awakened were those who wanted to fight. That is a curious concept, actually, because like I just said, it's not unusual to imagine people not wanting to do this. So when it's said that these people, like, there are people who would want to do it, you know? I imagine a few of you watching this right now would. So it would make more sense for those to be targeted, which then kind of leads into what was said about people not usually retiring and how unusual that is, because maybe in this world, in the solo leveling world, most of the people have the same kind of mindset that they want to fight, because the ones who are awakened are the people with that mindset to begin with, which is why it's so unusual for a person not to follow that order. That is a curious concept.
Scene with his mother was adapted perfectly, but the backstory regarding her scar could use a bit more context. This wasn't an accident in the kitchen, but was rather a mistake in the public bathhouse. You see, after years of being taken care of by his mother, little Sung Jin-woo only wanted to return the favor. He wanted to emulate what his mother did to him so many times before. Being so young and lacking the ability to distinguish the temperature of water, though, led Sung to not realize the bubbling water he was carrying was practically boiling. So he had carefully carried it over to his mother, then dumped it all on her since that was what Sung believed was normal. What neither the manhwa or anime showed after this was that Jinna was on his mom's lap as well. So, out of fear that some of this boiling water might end up on Jinna too, Sung's mom didn't move an inch. She barely flinched as she hunched over, enveloping the daughter beneath her. She didn't even make a sound either, so Sung didn't know he'd done anything wrong up until others in the bathhouse started running over. It was then that Sung would start to cry, but what he thought was for sure going to lead to a strict scolding instead became words.
Well, I guess it kind of did lead to a scolding. Just not the kind you would think. Oh my god. His mom is an absolute legend, isn't she? Right. I don't know if I want to share this story, but let's just say I have a younger story that involves not being able to. I have two actually that involves not being able to distinguish the right temperature. So this is actually accurate. This is something that like young kids do not know. They don't know that they don't fully understand hot water and cold water. Like they don't get just how dangerous they can be. And I have two instances in my younger years where it's always me, have been burned by either someone else or even my own stupidity when I was very young. I got two stories
But
like this.
what he thought was
So
for
I know
sure going
it's
to lead
actually
to a strict
true.
scolding instead became words which would be imprinted on him forever. Combine this with the fact his mom had taken care of them by herself, and Sung knew he owed her a debt that he could never repay. As much as he hated owing someone or someone owing him, his mom was the one person Sung would do anything for. It was also he could give back for what she gave him. Now, for Sung, whose hands remained steady even during numerous life and death battles, Now they trembled out of fear that a mistake would cost the life of his mother. He made sure to read the description over and over, ensuring he didn't miss a single thing about it. It was once those words were memorized that's when Sung would finally commit to giving it to her. The rest was a scene the anime did absolute justice to, especially the voice actor who killed it with the broken daijobus here. This brings us now to a cutscene involving the director of the hospital where, for him, an incredible opportunity just popped up. With this awakening being the first in history, it meant eyes would be focusing on him and his hospital internationally. There was incredible value to be made from all the free marketing he was about to get. In the manhwa, we're shown this director not wanting his patient to leave, but aside from it being due to a medical anomaly needing to be shared with the medical community, the reason in the novel was instead this. Reporters around the world were going to want to hear how it was this patient recovered, so the publicity of the hospital depended on Sung's mom being present. Not only
Man, the amount of people who are just fucking selfish assholes, man. Are they really? The fucking everybody. It's just so money focused. Fuck over everybody for a bit of clout and money. You know, fuck in hell, man. Like this is like what? Like, have a damn heart, dude. Jesus.
But the success of that publicity depended on whether they could figure out how she was cured to begin with.
What dickhead.
So, with the hospital's bright future being contingent entirely on her, the director suggested delaying her discharge as long as possible. That's when the doctor would mention doing so would cause issues, leading to the reveal the patient was Sung Jinwoo's mother. And with Sung Jinwoo being her registered guardian, he had requested her information be kept private. Now, normally the director would have disregarded such a request, but the moment he pieced together this was the same S-rank revealed several days ago, that's when he backtracked on everything. It wasn't because he was afraid Sung might try to harm him physically, but was rather due to the impact Sung would have on everything else. As an S-rank hunter whose connections extended to pretty much every branch of society,
we already knew that as well. If he's like putting that like what's it called? You know, like disclosure stuff or whatever, privacy stuff with the Hunters Association, like he's not going to be like the doctor can go against Jinwoo if he really wants, but he'll also be going against the association.
Negative press would be just the start of how Sung could potentially ruin them. When it came to Jinna reuniting with her mom, to Sung this emotional scene was reward enough for all the hard work he put in. He knew for sure now everything he'd done wasn't in vain. It was then that something stuck inside him would melt away, relieving him in a way that made it seem like the burden of losing his mother had finally been lifted. It was shortly after that Sung would check his phone and come across a surprising news article talking about Kaisul. Though Sung had thought he was being discreet, it turns out quite a few people had seen him yesterday.
Amazing, that's
This
funny.
had led a lot of them to panic, since the sight of what could only be a monster led them to think that this was a dungeon break.
Yeah,
The association hadn't even given a response on it, so a lot of people were speculating online on what this could be. Fortunately, no one had actually seen Sung, but he did feel bad since he could only imagine the anxiety a regular person would feel seeing a potential monster flying above them.
That one sentence is something that I feel like they need to reiterate a little bit more. He did feel bad. Jinwoo doesn't in the anime, Jinwoo doesn't seem to give a shit about anybody. Bro does not give a fuck about nobody. Like he has these, and people always like go in the comment section. No, that's not true. He doesn't. He does. He cared about this one person that one time. It's like that's not normal though. Like Jinwoo don't give a fuck about nobody, and then every now and then gives a little bit of a fuck. Like fuck you. Fuck you a little bit. Fuck you. That's Jinwoo. And to people, they're like, no, he remember that one person that he didn't kill? It's like, come on, man. That sentence, not anime Jinwoo.
It was then that the association would call to talk, and what some believed was them trying to contact him about the dragon was instead the chairman wanting to meet up. This brings us to the meeting about the raid, where Chairman Go would start by showing CCTV footage of the attack. He would then explain how 300 people died before it was stopped, leading Sung to ask if Japan had been slow to respond. Mr. Go would reveal how it only took 30 minutes to respond, so in the short time it took for Japanese hunters to get there, one single ant was able.
That was something I totally misunderstood. I didn't realize the island was a Japanese island. I thought the island was a Korean island. So this whole time I've been confused about that. I didn't know why Japan was so heavily involved now it like made a lot more sense. It's because the island that we saw attacked was a Japanese island.
Able to wipe out the entire village. It didn't matter how many times Mr. Go watched this, since every time he did, he couldn't help but shudder at the amount of damage which could be done to Korea. Like, if even Japan and their highly comprehensive hunter network couldn't handle it, then the disaster awaiting them was significantly worse. Now, the reason such a meeting was so urgent was because the Japanese Hunter Association was constantly demanding the official list of raid participants. Since Sung was yet to confirm his intent, the chairman was constantly delaying it. Sung was of course well within his position to decline, since with no guild affiliation and no employment with the association anymore, he wasn't bound by the responsibilities that a normal hunter would. It was right as he was about to give his answer, though, that's when he would sense what he initially thought was a dungeon break. Sensing it more revealed it wasn't the presence of monsters, but rather just a clash of raw magical energy. This was actually quite the incredible feat on its own, because the gymnasium Beck was in was designed to minimize the amount of magical energy leaked to the outside. In fact, where Sung could sense their energies clearly, Chairman Go couldn't sense a thing. That being the case, in a way, this showed just how much Sung's power had grown. Not only could he detect the minor amount of energy that was leaked, but he was also able to distinguish the types of magic energies that were clashing. So, from Chairman Go's perspective, Sung's senses were very highly attuned now. Now, the reason Sung decided to go check it out himself was because
that like a little add-on about like the chairman not being able to fully distinguish it. I wonder if the chairman is similar to Beck in the sense that he's kind of getting an idea that Sung Jin-woo is like getting stronger. I imagine that a lot of the high-ranking hunters, they're not idiots, right? Like some of them might just be meatheads, but the majority of them probably aren't idiots. Like they've probably been doing this for a while and have like a strong knowledge of the entire system. Not the actual system, but you know what I mean. So I'm presuming that would mean that what was I about to say? That they would be able to detect when Jinwoo turns up and is stronger.
Because a name was mentioned that every person around the world knew. Regardless of whether you were a hunter or not, at some point you would have heard the name Geoto Ryuji before.
Oh yeah, I knew.
So
yeah.
the fact he was here in a building right next to them,
that guy.
Well, the opportunity to meet him wasn't something Sung wanted to miss out on. So, it's here in the gymnasium that things started to pick up, introducing the rest of Korea's S ranks along with the 10 participating on the Japan side. Considering how they're jumping straight into the 4v4 though, does make it seem like they're gonna be skipping quite a bit of it. In the off chance they don't though, I think this will make for a pretty good stopping point. To quickly give out some extra information though, Guildmaster Ma is the leader of the Fame Guild while Jong-soo is the leader of the Knights. Fame currently sits at 4th, whereas the Knights, although not possessing an S rank, do contain the highest number of A ranks in the country. But yeah, that's mostly everything from Season 2, Episode 9. The cut content here was mostly on the light side, but the amount they covered wasn't that much to begin with. I expect we'll start seeing a lot more in the coming episodes, especially if they plan to cover Jeju Island in the 4 episodes remaining. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see that, and if you liked the video then leave a like. But anyway, don't forget to check out the new merch down below, and if you're looking for ReZero, I'll have a video out for that this weekend.
AniNews is doing a ReZero video? What? We're getting a ReZero video from AniNews? That's well cool. What, on the new season? God damn, that's awesome. Yeah, alright. So, we got 4 more episodes left, okay? Which, I was kind of hoping we'd have more, but 4 more episodes left. So that does confirm that we got, what, 10, 11, 12, 13. We're ending on 13. Fair enough. Alright, so, Jeju Island. Is Jeju Island going to be the main contention for the final 4 episodes? Probably. If Jeju Island is going to be the main thing for the final 4 episodes, and let's say hypothetically Jinwoo may not be going or he may be going, right. Because we still, the way that like everything's been reiterated and spoken about Jinwoo makes me wonder if he is going or isn't going to Jeju Island. And I just don't understand how he won't go. Because if he decides not to go, then I feel like that only leads one thing. Because I feel like Japan is planning some bollocks, right? They're planning some bollocks. It's been hinted that they're not the nicest, you know? Like they're not the nicest when it comes to the Korean hunters in solo leveling, right? So if that is the case, And Japan's Hunters Association doesn't really give a fuck about the Korean Hunters Association, and there's sort of some nefarious people who want to, like, ruin it, then you would imagine that if Sung Jin-woo doesn't go with them, my only prediction can be everybody dies. And it all fucks up. Because Japan is... So let me try and come up with a theory here, okay? So the plan is basically Korea goes after the Queen, Japan is the bait. Now, that seemed suspicious the second I heard it, and I mentioned it in the reaction. So for the raid to work, that needs to work. Alright, so with that in mind, that means that the plan needs to be 100% loyal and foolproof and all this sort of stuff, and Japan doesn't needs to honor it, etc., right? That's what needs to happen. So let's say they're not going to, then that would mean that they're not going to lure the monsters away, or they're only going to do it for a short period of time, thus encircling and killing the Korean hunters, which also, one thing to point out on top of that, we don't even know if the Korean hunters are going to be able to handle the Queen. And we don't know what the aftermath is going to be of that. In a situation where you have Korea and Japan, all their hunters on the outside of the island, and you you see, unless Japan has a secret way of doing it, hiding it, but if you see Japan screw over the Korean hunters in this situation, then surely that just means all-out war. Which maybe that's the way the anime is heading, but if it does, that's going to be such a left turn for the entire series. So what I keep thinking is if Jinwoo doesn't go on this island, then everyone's fucked. That's literally what I keep thinking. Jinwoo's the main character. He's got plot armor. He's just the main character, right? And two is Japan seems to have a different plan in place, and I don't think anyone fully understands how strong Jinwoo is. And just simply by having Jinwoo's presence on this island, you're immediately going to improve the strength of Korea to a very high level, because you're immediately going to have multiple S ranks joining you instead of just one, and multiple A ranks. Just like your force just immediately becomes bigger. I would say, and I don't know enough about his strength fully at this point and his shadow strengths, but based off of what I do know, I would say that having Jinwoo join the Korean hunters on their journey, let's say you had all the S ranks of Korea and then all the S ranks of Japan, I would argue that at this current moment, unless you take out Captain National Man, who has the strength of a national level hunter but doesn't have the rank, if you take him out of it, because he's an enigma in the situation, and just leave all the rest, then I would say they're either equal or Korea's even stronger just because of Jinwoo at this point, right? Jinwoo being incredibly strong on his own, but also having 2 S ranks in his arsenal, and also having an entire army of A ranks at this point as well. That would make him incredibly formidable, is what I'm trying to say. So in this situation, I would imagine that would be enough to turn the tides to Korea's favor. However, we still need to point out the Enigma, which is what they called national level hunters, or whatever they're called. That is the only issue. That guy is the major issue. So yeah, that's it then. That's bloody well it. Damn. Well, I guess we will see. I cannot wait to see how Season 2 wraps up. Very excited, and I hope you guys are enjoying my reactions to it as well. So that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself an amazing freaking day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. When AniNews drops a ReZero video, I will, of course, be reacting to that as well. Looking forward to that. Anyway, love all of you. Shout out AniNews. Link to their channels in the description. And as always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.